What does true strength mean to you? Is it the ability to lift heavy weights, to endure hardship without complaint, or perhaps something deeper, something that resides within? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words, written centuries ago, still resonate today because they point to a truth we often overlook. True strength isn't about what happens to us, but how we respond to it. In this video, we'll explore how Stoic reflection can help you uncover that inner resilience, the kind of strength that doesn't waver in the face of life's challenges. We'll dive into principles like self-awareness, emotional control, and purposeful action tools that can transform how you navigate modern struggles, from stress at work to personal setbacks. By the end, you'll see how Stoicism isn't just an ancient philosophy. It's a practical guide to living with clarity, courage, and calm. So, let's begin this journey together and discover what it truly means to be strong. True strength begins with understanding yourself. It's not about brute force or sheer willpower. It's about knowing who you are at your core, your values, your fears, and the habits that shape your decisions. Stoic reflection offers a powerful tool for this kind of self-awareness. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, emphasized the importance of self-examination, urging us to regularly question our assumptions and motivations. He believed that by understanding our emotional triggers and biases, we could begin to free ourselves from their grip. Think about it. How often do you react to a situation without fully understanding why? Maybe it's a comment from a coworker that sets you off, or a setback that leaves you feeling defeated. These moments reveal patterns in our thoughts and actions, patterns that, when left unchecked, can hold us back from true resilience. One practical way to cultivate this self-awareness is through journaling. By writing down your emotional responses to daily events, you create a map of your inner world. Over time, you'll start to notice trends, what frustrates you, what inspires you, and where you might be overreacting. This isn't about judging yourself, it's about observing, learning, and growing. So, here's a question to reflect on. What patterns in your thoughts or actions might be keeping you from your full potential? Recognizing them is the first step toward breaking free. How often do you find yourself pouring energy into things you can't change? Maybe it's a traffic jam that makes you late, a comment from someone that stings, or a project at work that doesn't go as planned. These moments can feel overwhelming, but here's the thing. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from understanding what we can and cannot control. This idea, known as the Dichotomy of Control, is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Epictetus put it simply, some things are within our power while others are not. It sounds straightforward, but how often do we actually live by this principle? The key is to shift your focus inward. Instead of trying to change external events, which are often outside your influence, you can choose how you respond to them. Think about stress at work, for example. You can't always control your workload, deadlines, or the behavior of your colleagues, but you can control how you approach your tasks, how you manage your time, and how you react to challenges. By focusing on these internal responses, you build a kind of strength that's unshakable, no matter what's happening around you. Let's take a moment to reflect. What's one thing in your life right now that you're worrying about, even though it's beyond your control? Maybe it's a relationship issue, a financial concern, or even the weather. Now, imagine what would happen if you redirected that energy towards something you can influence, your mindset, your habits, or your next steps. This shift doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It means choosing where to invest your energy wisely so you're not drained by things you can't change. Stoicism isn't about becoming indifferent or passive. It's about becoming intentional. When you embrace what's within your control, you stop feeling like life is happening to you and start realizing you have the power to shape your experience. So here's a challenge for you today. Identify one thing you've been stressing over that's outside your control. Then ask yourself, what's one small action I can take to focus on what I can influence instead? This simple practice can be the first step toward building the kind of strength that lasts. Detachment isn't indifference, it's clarity. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of Stoicism, but also one of the most powerful. When we talk about detachment, we're not talking about shutting down emotionally or pretending not to care. Instead, it's about creating enough space between yourself and a situation to see it clearly, without being clouded by fear, anger, or desire. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, often wrote about the importance of emotional distance. He believed that by stepping back, we could see things as they truly are, not as our emotions distort them to be. This kind of detachment isn't about avoiding life, it's about engaging with it more effectively. Think about a toxic relationship, for example. Maybe it's a friendship that drains you, a romantic partnership that's become unhealthy, or even a family dynamic that leaves you feeling exhausted. It's easy to get caught up in the emotions of these situations, anger, guilt, or even a sense of obligation. But Stoic detachment invites you to step back and ask, what is this relationship costing me? What am I holding onto that no longer serves me? By creating that mental space, you can see the situation for what it is, rather than what you wish it could be. And from that clarity, you can make better decisions that align with your values and long-term well-being. This principle applies to more than just relationships. It's about how we approach challenges, setbacks, and even opportunities. When we're too attached to a specific outcome, whether it's landing a job, achieving a goal, or even winning an argument, we risk losing sight of what's truly important. Detachment allows us to focus on the process rather than the result, on what we can control rather than what we can't. It's not about giving up, it's about letting go of the need to control every detail. So here's a question to reflect on. What attachment might be clouding your judgment right now? Is it a goal you're clinging to, a relationship you're holding onto, or a fear that's holding you back? By identifying these attachments, you can begin to loosen their grip, and in doing so, you'll find a deeper kind of strength, one that comes from clarity, not control. This is the essence of Stoic detachment, seeing clearly, acting wisely, and living freely. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, didn't just write about resilience, he lived it. As Emperor of Rome, he faced constant challenges, political turmoil, wars, and even personal loss. Yet he approached each obstacle with a mindset rooted in Stoic principles. He once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This idea, that hardship isn't something to avoid but something to embrace, lies at the core of Stoic resilience. It's not about pretending life is easy. It's about recognizing that difficulty is where growth happens. Stoic resilience isn't just enduring hardship, it's about transforming it into strength. Think of it like a tree growing in a storm. The wind doesn't break it. Instead, the tree's roots grow deeper, anchoring it more firmly. In the same way, when we face adversity, we have the opportunity to develop qualities like patience, perseverance, and adaptability. These aren't just abstract virtues, they're practical tools that help us navigate life's inevitable challenges. Consider a modern example. Imagine someone who's been passed over for a promotion at work. At first, it might feel like a crushing blow, a sign that they're not good enough or that their efforts don't matter. But what if they reframed that experience? What if, instead of seeing it as a failure, they saw it as a chance to reassess their goals, improve their skills, or even explore new opportunities? This shift in perspective doesn't erase the difficulty, but it changes how they engage with it. It turns a setback into a stepping stone. So, how can you apply this to your own life? Take a moment to think about a challenge you're facing right now. Maybe it's a personal struggle, a professional hurdle, or even a global issue that feels overwhelming. Ask yourself, how can I reframe this as an opportunity? What can I learn from this experience? How can I grow stronger because of it? These questions don't provide easy answers, but they open the door to a more resilient mindset, one that sees adversity not as an enemy but as a teacher. Resilience isn't about avoiding pain, it's about finding meaning in it. When we embrace this Stoic approach, we stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance and start seeing ourselves as active participants in our own growth. Every challenge, no matter how small or large, becomes a chance to build the kind of strength that lasts not just for today, but for a lifetime. How often are you truly present in your own life? Not just physically there, but fully engaged mind, body, and spirit. In a world filled with distractions, from endless notifications to the constant pull of past regrets and future worries, being present can feel like a rare luxury. But for the Stoics, mindfulness wasn't just a nice-to-have, it was a cornerstone of inner strength. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who lived as a slave, understood this deeply. He taught that our power lies in how we engage with the present moment, not in dwelling on what's already happened or what might come next. The present moment, he said, is all we truly have. The past is gone and the future is uncertain, but here now we can act with purpose and clarity. Stoic mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind or achieving some perfect state of calm. It's about paying attention, really paying attention to what's happening right now. It's about noticing the thoughts that drift through your mind, the emotions that rise and fall, and the world around you without getting swept away by them. This kind of presence isn't passive, it's active. It's a choice to show up fully, even when life feels chaotic or overwhelming. One practical way to cultivate this presence is through gratitude. Take a moment each day to reflect on something you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing. It could be as simple as the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, or the sound of a loved one's laughter. By focusing on these small, present-moment joys, you train your mind to stay grounded. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good exercise. It's a tool for anchoring yourself in the here and now where true strength resides. So here's a challenge for you. What's one moment today where you can practice being fully present? Maybe it's during a conversation with a friend where you put your phone away and really listen. Or perhaps it's while eating a meal where you savor each bite instead of rushing through it. These moments might seem small, but they're where life happens. And when you show up for them, you're not just living, you're thriving. Stoic mindfulness reminds us that strength isn't found in escaping the present, it's found in embracing it. When you learn to be fully here, right now, you tap into a reservoir of calm and clarity that no external circumstance can shake. It's not about perfection, it's about practice. And with each moment you choose to be present, you're building a foundation of resilience that will carry you through whatever comes next. Seneca once wrote, "True tranquility is the state reached when the mind is free from all disturbances." These words remind us that peace isn't something we find outside ourselves, it's something we cultivate within. In a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, Stoic reflection offers a path to inner calm. It's not about escaping life's challenges, but learning to navigate them with a steady mind and an open heart. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate this tranquility is through practices like meditation or journaling. Meditation, for instance, allows us to step back from the noise of our thoughts and emotions, creating space to observe them without judgment. It's not about silencing the mind, but about understanding it. Similarly, journaling can be a form of self-dialogue, a way to untangle the knots of our thoughts and gain clarity. By putting pen to paper, we externalize our worries, fears, and hopes, making them easier to process and release. Think about anxiety, for example. It's something many of us struggle with, whether it's about work, relationships, or the future. When anxiety strikes, it can feel like a storm raging inside us. But Stoic reflection teaches us to step back and ask, what's really within my control here? What can I do right now to ease this tension? Sometimes the answer is as simple as taking a few deep breaths, writing down your thoughts, or focusing on the present moment. These small actions might not solve the problem, but they can help you regain a sense of calm and perspective. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one change you can make to create more peace in your life? Maybe it's setting aside 5 minutes each morning to meditate, or keeping a journal by your bed to write down your thoughts before sleep. It could even be something as simple as taking a walk in nature or turning off your phone for an hour. The key is to start small and be consistent. Over time, these practices can become anchors, helping you stay grounded even when life feels turbulent. Inner peace isn't about eliminating stress or avoiding challenges. It's about finding a way to remain steady amidst the chaos. By embracing Stoic reflection and these practical tools, you can build a foundation of calm that supports you through whatever comes your way. And in doing so, you'll discover that true tranquility isn't a distant goal, it's a choice you make moment by moment. Strength isn't just endurance, it's purposeful action. It's not enough to simply weather the storms of life. True strength comes from moving forward with intention, aligning your actions with what truly matters to you. This is where Stoicism shines, offering a framework for living a life of meaning and direction. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reflected on the importance of intentional living. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In other words, don't just think about your values, live them. Every decision, every action becomes an opportunity to embody the principles you hold dear. Purposeful action starts with clarity. What do you value most? Is it integrity, compassion, growth, or something else entirely? Once you've identified your core values, the next step is to align your daily actions with them. This doesn't mean you have to overhaul your life overnight. It's about making small, consistent choices that reflect who you want to be. For example, if you value growth, you might commit to learning something new each week, whether it's reading a book, taking a class, or simply reflecting on a recent experience. If kindness is a priority, you could look for ways to support others, even in small gestures like offering a listening ear or a word of encouragement. Let's take a practical example, setting meaningful goals. Many of us set goals based on external expectations, getting a promotion, buying a house, or achieving a certain status. But Stoicism invites us to ask a deeper question. Does this goal align with my values? If your aim is to climb the corporate ladder, for instance, consider why. Is it because you genuinely value the work and the impact it has, or is it driven by a desire for approval or security? By aligning your goals with your values, you ensure that your efforts are not just productive but meaningful. So here's a challenge for you. What's one action you can take today that aligns with your values? It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing. It could be as simple as spending quality time with a loved one, standing up for a principle you believe in, or taking a step toward a personal goal. The key is to act with intention, to make choices that reflect who you are and who you aspire to be. Purposeful action isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about showing up day after day and making decisions that move you closer to the life you want to live. When you align your actions with your values, you tap into a deeper kind of strength, one that's rooted in purpose, not just perseverance. And in doing so, you create a life that's not only resilient but truly fulfilling. What fears are holding you back? It's a question worth asking because fear, in all its forms, has a way of shaping our lives, often without us even realizing it. Whether it's the fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown, these emotions can keep us stuck, preventing us from taking risks or pursuing what truly matters. But here's the thing, fear isn't something that happens to us, it's something we create within ourselves. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, put it this way: man is not disturbed by things, but by the views he takes of them. In other words, fear isn't in the situation itself, it's in how we interpret it, and that's where Stoic reflection comes in. It gives us the tools to confront and dismantle those fears, one thought at a time. Take public speaking, for example. For many, the idea of standing in front of a crowd is paralyzing. But why? Is it the act of speaking itself, or is it the fear of judgment, of making a mistake, or of not being good enough? Stoic reflection invites us to break down these fears, to examine them closely and ask, what's the worst that could happen? And if it did, how would I handle it? By facing these questions head-on, we begin to see that fear often exaggerates the stakes. The reality is rarely as catastrophic as our minds make it out to be. This process of reflection isn't about eliminating fear entirely. That's not realistic. Instead, it's about changing our relationship with it. When we understand that fear is a product of our own thoughts, we can start to challenge those thoughts. We can ask ourselves, is this fear based on facts, or is it just a story I'm telling myself? And if it's a story, can I rewrite it? For instance, instead of thinking, I'll embarrass myself if I speak up, you might reframe it as, this is an opportunity to share my ideas and grow, even if it feels uncomfortable. So here's a challenge for you. What's one fear you can face this week? It doesn't have to be something huge. It could be as simple as having a difficult conversation, trying something new, or speaking up in a meeting. The key is to take that first step, to lean into the discomfort rather than avoiding it. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of it. And every time you do, you're not just overcoming a fear, you're building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. Stoic reflection teaches us that fear, like so many things in life, is a matter of perspective. By examining our fears with curiosity and compassion, we can begin to loosen their grip, and in doing so, we open ourselves up to a life that's not just free from fear, but full of possibility. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words remind us that gratitude isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a practice, a way of seeing the world that can transform how we experience life. For the Stoics, gratitude wasn't about ignoring life's difficulties or pretending everything is perfect. It was about recognizing the good that exists alongside the challenges, and in doing so, building emotional resilience. When we focus on what we have rather than what we lack, we shift our perspective from scarcity to abundance, from frustration to contentment. Gratitude, at its core, is a form of emotional strength. It helps us anchor ourselves in the present moment, where true joy and peace are found. Think about it. When you're truly grateful for something, whether it's a kind word from a friend, a beautiful sunset, or even the simple pleasure of a warm cup of tea, you're not dwelling on past regrets or future worries. You're fully here in the now, appreciating what's right in front of you. This kind of presence doesn't just feel good, it builds a foundation of inner calm that can carry you through tougher times. One of the simplest yet most powerful ways to cultivate gratitude is through daily practices. For example, try listing 3 things you're grateful for each day. It doesn't have to be profound. Maybe it's the sound of birds chirping outside your window, a meal that nourished you, or a moment of laughter with someone you care about. Over time, this practice trains your mind to notice and appreciate the small, often overlooked blessings in your life. And the more you notice, the more you realize how much there is to be grateful for, even on the hardest days. Let's take a modern example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. It's easy to feel frustrated, stressed, or even angry. But what if, instead of focusing on the delay, you took a moment to appreciate the music playing in your car, the chance to pause and collect your thoughts, or even the fact that you have a car to get you where you need to go? This shift in perspective doesn't change the situation, but it changes how you experience it. And that's the power of gratitude. It turns ordinary moments into opportunities for joy. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you're grateful for today? It could be something big, like a milestone you've reached, or something small, like the warmth of sunlight on your skin. Take a moment to really savor it, to let it sink in. Because gratitude isn't just about acknowledging the good in your life. It's about letting that good fill you, strengthen you, and remind you of what truly matters. And when you make this a habit, you'll find that gratitude isn't just a practice, it's a source of enduring strength. In silence, we find clarity. It's a simple truth, yet one that's often overlooked in our noisy, fast-paced world. The Stoics understood the profound power of stillness, not as a luxury, but as a necessity for reflection and growth. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, often spoke about the importance of solitude. He believed that in moments of quiet, we could hear our own thoughts more clearly, untangling the chaos of our minds and reconnecting with what truly matters. "Be silent," he wrote, "and you will hear the voice of the gods." For the Stoics, this wasn't about divine intervention. It was about tapping into the wisdom that already resides within us. Stillness isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of space to think, to feel, and to simply be. In a world that constantly demands our attention, from buzzing phones to endless to-do lists, carving out moments of quiet can feel like a radical act. But it's in these moments that we often find our greatest insights. Think about it. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be still? Not scrolling, not multitasking, not planning, just sitting with your thoughts, letting them flow without judgment or interruption. It's in these pauses that we often discover what's been buried beneath the surface: unresolved emotions, hidden fears, or even long-forgotten dreams. One practical way to embrace stillness is through a digital detox. Imagine setting aside an hour or even a day where you disconnect from all screens and notifications. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even unsettling, but as the noise fades, you'll likely notice something remarkable: a sense of calm, a clarity of thought, and a deeper connection to yourself. This isn't about rejecting technology, it's about reclaiming your attention and creating space for reflection. In those quiet moments, you might find answers to questions you didn't even know you were asking. Stillness also has a way of grounding us in the present moment. When we're constantly moving, physically or mentally, it's easy to lose sight of what's happening right now. But when we pause, even briefly, we give ourselves the chance to truly experience life as it unfolds. It's like stepping out of a rushing river and standing on the bank for a moment. You can see the water more clearly, hear its rhythm, and feel its energy. That's the gift of stillness. It brings us back to the here and now, where life is actually happening. So here's an invitation this week: find a moment to be still. It could be as simple as sitting quietly with a cup of tea, taking a walk without your phone, or spending a few minutes in meditation. Notice what arises: thoughts, feelings, sensations, without trying to change or judge them. Just observe. In that stillness, you might just find the clarity you've been searching for, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is nothing at all. And in doing nothing, we create the space to become everything we're meant to be. How does humility shape your strength? At first glance, humility might seem like the opposite of strength, something soft, even passive. But in Stoicism, humility is a cornerstone of true resilience. It's not about diminishing yourself or shrinking from challenges. It's about recognizing your limits, learning from others, and staying open to growth. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who rose from slavery to become one of history's greatest teachers, put it this way: "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." In other words, humility is the gateway to wisdom. When we approach life with a humble mindset, we create space to learn, adapt, and become stronger. Think about a time when you made a mistake at work. Maybe you overlooked a detail, missed a deadline, or mishandled a project. It's easy to feel defensive or embarrassed in those moments, to try to shift blame or downplay the error. But what if instead you owned up to it? What if you said, "I messed up and here's how I'll fix it"? That's humility in action, not weakness, but a quiet strength that builds trust, respect, and resilience. By admitting your mistakes, you show that you're committed to growth, not perfection. And that's where real strength lies. Humility also helps us see the value in others. When we're humble, we're more likely to listen, to seek advice, and to collaborate. We recognize that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. In fact, it's an opportunity. Imagine you're working on a team project and someone suggests an idea that's completely different from yours. Instead of dismissing it outright, humility allows you to consider it, to ask questions, and to see if there's something you can learn. This openness doesn't just make you a better team player, it makes you a stronger, more adaptable person. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one area where you can practice humility? Maybe it's at work, where you can admit when you don't know something and ask for help. Or perhaps it's in a relationship where you can listen more and speak less. It could even be in your personal growth, where you can acknowledge your flaws and commit to improving them. Whatever it is, remember that humility isn't about shrinking, it's about expanding. It's about becoming the kind of person who can face challenges with grace, learn from every experience, and grow stronger with every step. And in doing so, you'll find that humility isn't just a virtue, it's a source of enduring strength. Anger is a weakness disguised as strength. It's a fire that burns hot and fast, leaving destruction in its wake, not just for others, but for ourselves. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca, one of the most eloquent voices on the subject, called anger a brief madness. He believed it clouds our judgment, distorts our perspective, and ultimately weakens us. But here's the good news. Stoic reflection offers a way to disarm anger before it takes hold. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about understanding them and choosing how to respond. Let's take a modern example: road rage. You're driving along, minding your own business, when someone cuts you off. Instantly, your heart races, your fists tighten, and your mind floods with frustration. In that moment, anger feels justified, even righteous. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if you asked yourself, "Why am I so upset? Is this worth my energy?" Stoic reflection invites us to step back and see the bigger picture. That driver who cut you off, maybe they're rushing to the hospital, or perhaps they're simply having a bad day. Does their action truly deserve your anger, or is it just a fleeting moment in your life? Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." By creating even a small space between the trigger and your response, you give yourself the chance to choose differently. Instead of lashing out, you can take a deep breath, let the moment pass, and move on. This doesn't mean you ignore injustice or let others walk all over you. It means you respond with clarity, not chaos. Anger, after all, is often a reaction to feeling out of control. But when you pause and reflect, you reclaim that control. You decide how to act rather than letting your emotions decide for you. So, here's a question to consider. What triggers your anger, and how can you respond differently? Maybe it's a rude comment from a coworker, a disagreement with a loved one, or even a personal failure. Whatever it is, take a moment to reflect. What's really at the root of your anger? Is it fear, insecurity, or a sense of injustice? By understanding the source, you can address it more effectively. And when you do, you'll find that anger loses its power over you. The Stoic approach to anger isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional. It's about recognizing that anger, while natural, doesn't have to define you. When you learn to manage it, you don't just avoid unnecessary conflict, you build a deeper, more enduring kind of strength, one that's rooted in clarity, not chaos. And in doing so, you create a life that's not just calmer but more empowered. Epictetus once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." These words capture the essence of acceptance, a concept that might seem passive at first, but in reality is one of the most powerful tools for building resilience. Acceptance isn't about giving up or resigning yourself to fate. It's about recognizing what's beyond your control and choosing to focus your energy where it truly matters. This shift in mindset doesn't just ease suffering, it transforms how we navigate life's inevitable challenges. Think about loss, for example. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, or even the loss of a job, these experiences can feel overwhelming. It's natural to resist them, to wish things were different, or to replay scenarios in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. But here's the truth: no amount of resistance can change what's already happened. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows you to acknowledge the reality of the situation without being consumed by it. It's not about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about making space for it so you can begin to heal and move forward. Consider a tree in winter. Its leaves have fallen, its branches are bare, and it stands exposed to the cold. But the tree doesn't fight the season, it accepts it. In doing so, it conserves its energy, preparing for the spring when new growth will emerge. In the same way, acceptance helps us conserve our emotional energy, so we can channel it into what truly matters: rebuilding, adapting, and finding meaning even in the face of hardship. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one situation in your life right now that you need to accept to move forward? Maybe it's a mistake you can't undo, a change you didn't ask for, or a reality you've been avoiding. By acknowledging it, you're not admitting defeat, you're taking the first step toward reclaiming your power. Because acceptance isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you decide how to respond, grow, and thrive. How does discipline shape your strength? At first glance, discipline might seem rigid or restrictive, a set of rules to follow, a list of do's and don'ts. But in Stoicism, discipline is something far more profound. It's the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, often reflected on the importance of self-control, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. For the Stoics, discipline wasn't about punishment or deprivation. It was about aligning your actions with your values even when it's hard. It's the daily practice of choosing what's meaningful over what's easy. Think about a healthy routine, for example. Waking up early, eating nourishing food, exercising regularly. These habits don't just happen. They require consistent effort, especially when you're tired, stressed, or tempted to take the easier path. But here's the thing: every time you choose to stick to that routine, you're not just building physical strength, you're building mental resilience. You're proving to yourself that you can follow through, even when motivation wanes. Over time, these small acts of discipline compound, creating a foundation of strength that's unshakable. Stoic discipline isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about showing up day after day and doing the work, not because it's glamorous, but because it's necessary. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule an empire by waiting for inspiration to strike. He did it by committing to the daily grind, by focusing on what he could control and letting go of what he couldn't. That's the essence of Stoic discipline. It's not about controlling the world, it's about mastering yourself. So, here's a challenge for you. What's one habit you can commit to for the next 30 days? It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing. Maybe it's reading for 15 minutes each night, meditating for 5 minutes in the morning, or even just drinking more water throughout the day. The key is consistency. By committing to this small act of discipline, you're not just building a habit, you're building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. And as you do, you'll start to see that discipline isn't a burden, it's a gift, a way to take control of your life and shape it into something extraordinary. True strength includes compassion for others. It's easy to think of strength as something solitary, a rugged independence, a stoic endurance. But Stoicism reminds us that real resilience isn't just about standing tall on your own, it's about lifting others up too. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." In other words, our well-being is deeply connected to the well-being of those around us. Strength, then, isn't just about personal fortitude. It's about extending kindness, understanding, and support to others, even when it's not easy. Stoicism teaches us to balance strength with empathy. It's not about being so tough that you become indifferent to the struggles of others. Instead, it's about recognizing that compassion is a form of strength, one that requires courage, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable. Think about a time when a friend was going through a tough situation. Maybe they were dealing with a loss, a failure, or a moment of self-doubt. Offering support in those moments, whether it's a listening ear, a helping hand, or simply being present, takes strength. It's not about fixing their problems or having all the answers. It's about showing up and letting them know they're not alone. Consider this example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague is struggling with a heavy workload. They're stressed, overwhelmed, and on the verge of burnout. You could choose to focus solely on your own tasks, telling yourself it's not your problem. Or you could take a moment to step in, offer to help, share some advice, or even just ask how they're doing. That small act of compassion doesn't just ease their burden. It strengthens the bond between you and creates a more supportive environment for everyone. It's a reminder that strength isn't just about what you can do for yourself, it's about what you can do for others. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you show more compassion today? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as checking in on a loved one, offering a kind word to a stranger, or even just being more patient with yourself. Compassion isn't about perfection, it's about intention. And when you make it a habit, you'll find that it doesn't just strengthen others, it strengthens you too. Because true strength isn't just about enduring, it's about connecting, caring, and creating a world where everyone can thrive. How does reflecting on mortality shape your strength? It might seem counterintuitive, but the Stoic practice of memento mori, remembering death, isn't about dwelling on the end. It's about using the awareness of life's brevity to live more fully, more intentionally. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This reminder isn't meant to scare us, it's meant to wake us up. When we truly grasp that our time is limited, we stop postponing what matters. We stop waiting for the right moment and start creating it. Think about the relationships in your life. How often do you take them for granted, assuming there will always be more time to connect, to apologize, to say, "I love you"? Memento mori challenges us to act now, not later. It's not about living in fear of loss, it's about living with gratitude for what we have while we have it. Imagine if you treated every conversation, every moment with someone you care about, as if it could be your last. How would that change the way you show up? How would it deepen your connections? This practice isn't just about relationships, though. It's about every aspect of life. When you reflect on your mortality, you start to see through the distractions, the trivial worries, the endless scrolling, the things that don't truly matter. You begin to focus on what's meaningful, your passions, your values, the legacy you want to leave behind. It's like holding up a mirror to your life and asking, is this how I want to spend my time? Is this how I want to be remembered? So, here's a question to reflect on. What would you do differently if today were your last day? Would you spend it chasing approval, or would you spend it being true to yourself? Would you hold on to grudges, or would you let them go? The beauty of memento mori is that it doesn't just remind us of death, it reminds us of life. It's a call to live with purpose, to make every moment count, and to find strength in the clarity that comes from knowing our time is precious. When you embrace this practice, you don't just become stronger, you become more alive. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, said Leonardo da Vinci, and the Stoics would wholeheartedly agree. In a world that often feels cluttered, with endless to-do lists, constant notifications, and the pressure to do more, have more, and be more, simplicity offers a path to clarity and strength. Stoicism teaches us that by stripping away the unnecessary, we can focus on what truly matters. Epictetus, the philosopher who lived with little more than the essentials, once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This isn't about living in deprivation, it's about living with intention. When we simplify, we create space to think, to breathe, and to connect with what's meaningful. Think about decluttering your home. When you remove the items you no longer need or use, you're not just creating physical space, you're also clearing mental clutter. Each item you let go of is a decision to prioritize what adds value to your life. The same principle applies to how we spend our time and energy. How often do we say yes to things out of obligation or habit, only to feel drained and distracted? Stoic simplicity invites us to ask what's essential. What aligns with my values and goals? By focusing on these questions, we can let go of what doesn't serve us and invest more deeply in what does. Consider this example. Imagine you're juggling multiple commitments, work projects, social events, family responsibilities. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, like you're constantly running on empty. But what if you took a step back and asked yourself, which of these commitments truly matter to me? Which ones bring me joy or align with my purpose? By simplifying your schedule, you're not just reducing stress, you're reclaiming your time and energy for what's most important. It's not about doing less, it's about doing what matters most. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you can simplify today? Maybe it's your schedule, your workspace, or even your digital life. Start small, clear out a drawer, unsubscribe from emails you never read, or say no to an obligation that drains you. Each act of simplification is a step toward greater focus, clarity, and strength. Because when we let go of the noise, we make room for what truly matters. And in that space, we find not just simplicity, but a deeper, more enduring kind of strength. How do you handle criticism? For many of us, it's a tough pill to swallow. Whether it's a harsh comment from a colleague, a critique of your work, or even an offhand remark from a friend, criticism can sting. It's natural to feel defensive, hurt, or even angry. But what if criticism didn't have to feel like an attack? What if instead it could be an opportunity for growth? This is where Stoic reflection comes in. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." These words remind us that criticism at its core is just someone else's perspective, not a verdict on your worth or abilities. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're at work and your manager gives you feedback on a project. Maybe they point out areas where you could improve or suggest a different approach. In the moment, it's easy to feel discouraged or even defensive. But Stoic reflection invites us to step back and ask, what can I learn from this? Is there truth in what's being said? By shifting your focus from how the criticism makes you feel to what it can teach you, you turn a potentially negative experience into a chance to grow. It's not about agreeing with every critique or dismissing your own efforts. It's about finding the value in the feedback, even when it's hard to hear. Criticism, when approached with a Stoic mindset, becomes less about judgment and more about insight. Think of it like a mirror. It reflects something back to you, but it's up to you to decide what to do with that reflection. Maybe the feedback highlights a blind spot you hadn't noticed or reveals a pattern you can work on. Or maybe it simply reminds you that not everyone will see things the way you do, and that's okay. The key is to separate the criticism from your sense of self. You are not your mistakes, your shortcomings, or someone else's opinion of you. You are a work in progress, and every piece of feedback is a tool to help you grow. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you use criticism to become stronger? The next time you receive feedback, try this. Pause before reacting. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's the lesson here? Even if the criticism feels unfair or unkind, there's often something you can take away from it. Maybe it's a chance to improve a skill, to communicate more clearly, or simply to practice resilience. Criticism doesn't define you, but how you respond to it can shape who you become. And when you approach it with curiosity and courage, you'll find that even the toughest feedback can be a stepping stone to greater strength. Patience is the quiet strength of the Stoic. It's not about passively waiting for things to happen. It's about maintaining your composure and focus, even when progress feels slow or uncertain. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Time heals what reason cannot." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that some things simply take time, and that's okay. Patience isn't just a virtue, it's a form of resilience, a way to stay grounded when life doesn't move at the pace we'd like. It's about trusting the process even when the outcome isn't immediately clear. Think about a career breakthrough, for example. You've worked hard, honed your skills, and put in the hours, but the promotion or opportunity you've been hoping for hasn't come yet. It's easy to feel frustrated, to question your efforts, or even to give up. But patience invites you to shift your perspective. Instead of focusing on what hasn't happened, you can focus on what you're building: your expertise, your network, your character. Each day of waiting isn't wasted time, it's an investment in your future. Patience teaches us that growth often happens in the unseen moments, the ones that don't make headlines but lay the foundation for lasting success. Patience also brings clarity. When we rush, we're more likely to make impulsive decisions or overlook important details. But when we slow down, we give ourselves the space to think, to reflect, and to choose wisely. It's like standing back from a painting to see the whole picture rather than getting lost in the brushstrokes. This kind of patience isn't just about waiting, it's about using the time wisely so when the moment comes, you're ready. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one area where you can practice more patience? Maybe it's a personal goal you're working toward, a relationship that's taking time to heal, or even a skill you're trying to master. Whatever it is, consider how patience could help you approach it with more resilience and clarity. Because true strength isn't just about pushing forward, it's about knowing when to pause, when to wait, and when to trust that the best is yet to come. How can preparing for challenges make you stronger? It might sound counterintuitive, but the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, anticipating potential difficulties, is one of the most powerful tools for building resilience. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, put it this way: "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise. In other words, by imagining what could go wrong, we're not inviting trouble, we're preparing ourselves to face it with clarity and calm. Think about a tough conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a discussion with a coworker about a missed deadline, or a heart-to-heart with a loved one about a sensitive topic. It's easy to put it off, hoping the issue will resolve itself. But what if, instead of avoiding it, you took a moment to prepare? What if you imagined the worst-case scenario, what they might say, how you might feel, and then thought through how you'd respond? This kind of mental rehearsal doesn't just reduce anxiety, it equips you to handle the situation with confidence, no matter how it unfolds. The beauty of premeditatio malorum is that it doesn't just apply to big, life-altering events. It's equally effective for everyday challenges. Imagine you're planning a presentation at work. Instead of just focusing on the positive outcome, take a moment to consider what could go wrong. What if the technology fails? What if someone asks a question you're not prepared for? By anticipating these possibilities, you're not setting yourself up for failure. You're giving yourself the tools to adapt and succeed, even when things don't go as planned. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge you can prepare for today? It doesn't have to be something major. Maybe it's a difficult email you need to send, a decision you've been putting off, or even a personal goal that feels daunting. Take a moment to imagine the obstacles you might face and then think through how you'd navigate them. This simple practice doesn't just build resilience, it builds confidence. Because when you've already faced the worst in your mind, you're ready to handle whatever comes your way in reality. And that's the true power of premeditatio malorum. It turns fear into foresight and uncertainty into strength. Strength is amplified in community. While Stoicism often emphasizes self-reliance and inner resilience, it also recognizes the profound power of connection. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that our well-being is deeply intertwined with the well-being of those around us. True strength isn't just about standing tall on your own. It's about lifting others up, learning from them, and growing together. Think about the Stoic study groups that have formed over the centuries, spaces where individuals come together to discuss philosophy, share insights, and support one another in their journeys. These groups aren't just about intellectual exchange, they're about creating a sense of belonging, a shared commitment to living with wisdom and virtue. When you're part of a community that values growth and reflection, you're not just stronger individually, you're stronger collectively. Challenges feel less daunting when you know you're not facing them alone, and victories are sweeter when they're shared. But community doesn't have to mean joining a formal group. It can be as simple as deepening your connections with the people already in your life, friends, family, colleagues, or even strangers you meet along the way. It's about showing up, listening, and being present. It's about offering support when someone stumbles and celebrating their successes as if they were your own. In these small, everyday acts of connection, we build a network of strength that sustains us through life's ups and downs. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you strengthen your connections with others? Maybe it's reaching out to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, joining a local or online group that aligns with your interests, or simply being more intentional in your conversations. Every act of connection, no matter how small, is a step toward building a stronger, more resilient community. And in doing so, you'll find that your own strength grows, not just because of what you give, but because of what you receive in return. Because when we come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've explored together. True strength, as the Stoics teach us, isn't about external achievements or fleeting moments of power. It's about cultivating an unshakable foundation within ourselves through self-awareness, resilience, and purposeful action. These principles aren't just abstract ideas, they're tools we can use every day to navigate life's challenges with clarity and courage. Self-awareness helps us understand our thoughts, emotions, and patterns, giving us the insight to break free from what holds us back. Resilience reminds us that adversity isn't something to fear but an opportunity to grow stronger, like a tree weathering a storm. And purposeful action ensures that our efforts are aligned with what truly matters, so we're not just moving through life but living it with intention. Together, these principles form the bedrock of Stoic strength, a strength that doesn't depend on circumstances but grows from within. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." These words capture the essence of what we've discussed. True freedom, true strength, comes from mastering our inner world. It's about taking control of our thoughts, our reactions, and our choices, no matter what life throws our way. And the beauty of this philosophy is that it's not reserved for a select few. It's available to anyone willing to reflect, learn, and grow. So, here's a question to carry with you. How will you apply these principles in your own life? Maybe it's by journaling to deepen your self-awareness, by reframing a challenge as an opportunity for growth, or by taking one small, intentional step toward a goal that aligns with your values. The path to true strength isn't about perfection, it's about progress, and every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the person you're meant to be. If you found value in this exploration of Stoic reflection, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments how you plan to apply these ideas, or let me know what resonated most with you. And if you're eager to dive deeper into Stoic wisdom, consider subscribing for more insights and practical tools to help you live with clarity, courage, and calm. Together, let's continue this journey toward true strength, one reflection, one action, one moment at a time.